When most people hear about the Code of Hammurabi, they hear a comforting story. An ancient king who believed in justice. An early champion of law and order. The ruler who gave the world the famous principle of an eye for an eye. It sounds like the birth of fairness itself, carved into stone for all humanity to follow. But what if that story is wrong? What if Hammurabi didn't carve those laws to protect the weak, but to protect something far more fragile and far more valuable? What if justice was never the goal at all? Because hidden beneath the language of fairness, divine authority, and moral order is a much darker motivation, one that connects ancient Babylon to modern governments, financial systems, and corporate power in ways that are deeply unsettling. Tonight, we're going to uncover the real reason Hammurabi wrote his code. And once you see it, you may never look at laws the same way again. Welcome to its financial history too. To understand what Hammurabi was really doing, we need to go back nearly 3,800 years. To ancient Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. This wasn't just the cradle of civilization. It was the cradle of complex economies. By Hammurabi's time, Babylon was no simple city-state. It was a growing empire with agriculture, trade routes stretching across regions, private property, wage labor, contracts, interest-bearing loans, and debt. In other words, Babylon had money. And where money exists, power struggles follow. Hammurabi ruled over a deeply divided society. There were landowners and tenants, merchants and laborers, priests and soldiers, free citizens and slaves. Wealth was uneven and debt was everywhere. Farmers borrowed seeds and tools to survive bad harvests. Merchants borrowed silver to fund long-distance trade. Families borrowed just to stay alive during hard years. When they couldn't repay, the consequences were brutal. Land was seized, children were sold into servitude. Families lost their freedom. Debt crises weren't rare, they were constant. And history shows us something important. Debt crises lead to revolts. Earlier Mesopotamian kings understood this danger. When pressure became unbearable, they sometimes canceled debts entirely. These debt jubilees restored social balance, but they terrified elites. Creditors lost wealth overnight. Investments vanished. Power structures weakened. Hammurabi inherited a kingdom sitting on this fault line. He faced a choice that every ruler of an unequal society eventually faces. Either protect the people and anger the elites, or protect the elites and risk rebellion. His solution was not mercy, it was law. Before Hammurabi, laws existed, but they were flexible. Disputes were settled by elders, judges, or priests on a case-by-case basis. This allowed room for negotiation, forgiveness, and social pressure. But flexibility is dangerous for those with wealth. If outcomes depend on judgment, then contracts are uncertain. Loans are risky. Property rights feel unstable. Elites don't fear injustice. They fear unpredictability. So Hammurabi did something revolutionary. He standardized punishment. He fixed outcomes. He removed negotiation from the process and replaced it with stone, literally. By carving laws into a public monument, Hammurabi created the illusion that the law applied equally to everyone. But if you read the code closely, that illusion falls apart quickly. Babylonian society was divided into clear classes. Free elites, commoners, slaves. The same crime produced different punishments, depending on who committed it and who suffered from it. If a noble injured another noble, the punishment was severe. If the victim was a commoner, the punishment was lighter. If the victim was a slave, the punishment became a fine paid to the owner. This wasn't justice. It was accounting. The law didn't erase hierarchy, it preserved it. More importantly, it made it predictable. Creditors could now calculate risk. Property owners could trust enforcement. Merchants could invest knowing exactly how disputes would be resolved. Justice wasn't the objective. Stability was. And stability is what keeps empires alive. The code punished theft harshly. It punished debt default. It punished anyone who disrupted contracts. But notice who it rarely restrained: the powerful themselves. Corrupt officials were theoretically punishable, but enforcement depended on the same elite class. Builders were punished if a house collapsed, but only if it killed the owner, not the laborers who built it. Responsibility flowed downward. Protection flowed upward. The most dangerous feature of the code wasn't its cruelty. It was its permanence. Once injustice is written into stone, it becomes unquestionable. Suffering is no longer oppression, it's the law, and the law Hammurabi claimed came from the gods. That claim was crucial. By invoking divine authority, Hammurabi removed himself from blame. If people suffered under debt, it wasn't royal policy. It was cosmic order. Stone doesn't negotiate. Stone doesn't adapt. Stone doesn't forgive. And that was exactly the point. At first, the system worked. Trade expanded. Property markets stabilized. Babylon grew richer and more powerful. But beneath the surface, pressure was building. Debt slavery increased. Wealth concentrated. Social mobility vanished. The law didn't prevent injustice, it froze it in place. Eventually, no amount of legal order could contain the consequences. Revolts erupted. External enemies attacked. Babylon declined. Hammurabi's laws outlived him, but they couldn't save the system they were designed to protect. Later rulers copied his model. They expanded legal codes. They refined punishments. They invoked gods and morality. But the outcome remained the same. When law prioritizes stability over fairness, collapse is only delayed, not prevented. This is where the story stops being ancient history, because the pattern didn't disappear. It evolved. Modern legal systems still punish individuals more harshly than institutions. Corporations pay fines. People go to prison. Financial crimes destroy millions of lives, yet those responsible often walk free. Contracts are enforced faster than human welfare. Debt relief is rare. Debt enforcement is aggressive. The language is justice. The function is stability. Today, the poorest half of the world owns less than 2% of global wealth. Laws protect property and capital with extraordinary precision, while social safety nets remain fragile and conditional. Just like Babylon, our systems are designed to keep the machine running, even if people are crushed inside it. Hammurabi didn't write his code because he believed humans were equal. He wrote it because unequal systems require rigid rules to survive. Law became a tool to manage tension, not to eliminate injustice. And that leads us to 3 uncomfortable truths. First, law is never neutral. It reflects who holds power at the moment it is written. Second, stability is often chosen over fairness, especially in economic systems built on debt and hierarchy. Third, when laws become sacred and untouchable, injustice becomes permanent. Hammurabi didn't fail because he lacked wisdom. He failed because he believed order alone could replace justice. And every society that repeats that belief eventually carves its own downfall into stone. The real question isn't whether we have laws. The real question is who those laws protect and who they silence. If this story changed the way you see history, power, or justice, support the channel by liking the video and subscribing. Share it with someone who still believes laws are always written for the good of everyone. Because history doesn't just explain the present. It warns us about the future.